This audiobook will teach you how to stop negotiating with your emotions and start commanding your actions. You'll learn how to build motion when you feel stuck, how to discipline your thoughts, and how to train your brain to move whether it wants to or not. Because when you learn to act before you feel ready, laziness dies and a stronger version of you is born. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Battle with Yourself. Every person carries a silent war inside. It begins the moment you wake up. There is a version of you that wants to rise, to move, to create. And there is another that whispers for just 5 more minutes. The first version knows what you should do. The second tries to protect you from effort. This is the battle between growth and comfort. It does not end with age, money, or success. It begins again every morning when the alarm rings and your mind decides who will win today. Laziness is not the absence of ambition, it is the presence of resistance. That resistance hides behind soft thoughts. You deserve a break. It's not the right time. You'll start when you feel better. Those words sound harmless, but they are weapons of delay. They stop you from building momentum. They feed you comfort when what you need is challenge. The hardest part is that these thoughts come from your own mind. You trust them. You believe them. You don't realize they are quietly stealing your potential one excuse at a time. The battle with yourself is not fought with anger or frustration. It is fought with awareness. You cannot win a war you refuse to see. The first step is to notice the moment laziness speaks. It is not always loud. Sometimes it is a gentle pull toward distraction. Sometimes it is a small voice that tells you to check your phone before you start. Other times it is disguised as overthinking. You plan, research, and prepare instead of doing. You call it productivity, but it is avoidance wearing a mask. When you understand that laziness is resistance, you stop judging yourself as weak. You begin to see it as a signal. Every time you feel that urge to delay, it means you are standing at the edge of growth. You are facing the exact task that will make you stronger if you simply begin. The problem is not that you feel resistance. The problem is that you have been letting it decide your actions. The cure is movement, not motivation, not waiting for inspiration. Movement. The smallest motion forward weakens the resistance and strengthens your will. You must decide every day that you will not surrender to the easier choice. There will always be an excuse available. There will always be something more comfortable to do. But every time you choose effort over ease, you reclaim a piece of your power. You train your mind to obey you, not the whispers of comfort. This is the battle with yourself. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about showing up when it would be simpler to stay still. It is about recognizing that your greatest enemy is not the world outside, but the voice inside that wants to keep you safe by keeping you small. The moment you see that truth, you can fight back. And once you learn to win this battle even once, you will begin to understand that victory is not about energy or talent. It is about discipline, awareness, and choice. The war will not disappear, but you will get stronger with every fight. Chapter 2. The Science of Inertia. Laziness feels personal, but it begins in the body before it becomes a choice. Inside you lives a machine designed for survival, not success. That machine wants to save energy, avoid risk, and stay safe. To the brain, comfort equals safety. Every time you reach for your phone instead of your goals, you are not weak. You are simply obeying an ancient program built to keep you alive, not fulfilled. Understanding this is the beginning of power. You cannot reprogram what you do not understand. Inertia is the law of stillness. What is at rest tends to stay at rest. And the same rule applies to your mind. When you stop moving, when you surrender to hesitation, your body creates a feedback loop that resists action. The longer you wait, the heavier movement feels. It is not just psychological. Your energy chemistry changes, dopamine drops, cortisol rises. The body begins to prefer the predictability of doing nothing. This is why the hardest step is always the first. The brain resists movement because it costs energy. It prefers patterns that require no thought, no risk, no effort. The world you live in today rewards stimulation without action. You can scroll through endless feeds and feel the illusion of progress. Your brain releases tiny bursts of dopamine for every like, message, and short clip. But those rewards come without effort. Over time, your system gets addicted to easy pleasure. It stops craving challenge. It stops chasing long-term reward. The same brain that once hunted, built, and created now chases the fastest path to comfort. And every time it does, inertia grows stronger. This is not permanent. It can be reversed. The key is to understand that your biology obeys repetition. What you repeat becomes what you crave. If you teach your brain to expect effort, it adapts. It starts to associate movement with satisfaction. But that shift takes consistency. You must starve the circuits that feed on distraction and feed the circuits that reward focus. When you start a difficult task, your brain does not instantly produce pleasure. It resists. It complains. But if you keep going, if you push through the first few minutes, dopamine begins to rise again. The body learns that progress feels good. To overcome laziness, stop expecting comfort to disappear. It will not. Build systems that make effort easier to start. Prepare your environment. Remove temptation before it calls. Put the phone out of reach. Place your tools in sight. Simplify the path to action. Each small adjustment weakens the inertia loop. Every time you start without waiting to feel ready, you retrain your nervous system to obey you, not the voice of comfort. Inertia is not a sentence. It is a signal. It means your mind is caught between two forces, the pull of comfort and the call of purpose. The science is simple. Movement breaks inertia. The first step triggers chemistry. The second builds momentum. The third creates belief. The only way out is through motion. Once you move, the body follows, the mind follows, and soon the resistance that felt like a wall becomes nothing more than air behind you. This is how you win against laziness, not by fighting your biology, but by teaching it who is in command. Chapter 3. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is an illusion. It is the lie your mind tells you to delay action while it searches for comfort. You wait for energy, for motivation, for a sign that the moment is right. You tell yourself that once you feel inspired, you will begin. But that feeling rarely comes. The longer you wait for it, the weaker your momentum becomes. Readiness is not a doorway that opens before you move. It is a door that opens only after you walk through it. Every great change begins before you feel ready. The athlete who trains in the dark does not wait to be confident. The writer who faces a blank page does not wait for inspiration. The person who transforms their life begins not because they are fearless, but because they move despite the fear. Action creates the feeling you have been waiting for. Confidence, energy, and clarity do not appear first. They are rewards for movement, not permission slips to start. The truth is that waiting to feel ready is another form of hesitation. It disguises itself as preparation. You convince yourself that you are gathering information, that you are being responsible, that you are waiting for the right time. But beneath that logic is fear. You are afraid to fail, afraid to start small, afraid to be seen trying, and so you keep planning instead of moving, researching instead of risking, dreaming instead of doing. Every moment you wait for readiness, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. The brain loves this pattern because it feels safe. No action means no danger, but it also means no progress. The people who achieve what others dream of are not braver or smarter. They simply act without needing the comfort of certainty. They have learned that the body can move before the mind agrees. You must learn to act while the mind protests. That is how discipline is born. The next time you hear yourself say, "I'll start tomorrow," stop and act within 5 seconds. Take one small step, no matter how imperfect. Send the email, stand up, begin the task. Once you move, the illusion of unreadiness dissolves. The brain catches up to the body, and what felt impossible becomes manageable. You will never feel completely ready for what truly matters. Growth is uncomfortable by design. The moment you wait for ease, you postpone evolution. The moment you move, even trembling, you declare that comfort no longer decides your future. You will stumble, you will doubt, but you will be in motion. And motion creates the very readiness you were searching for. So stop waiting for the perfect time. It does not exist. Start where you are with what you have, in the condition you are in. The act of beginning is the act of becoming. Each small start builds proof that you can move even when your mind resists. And once you learn to move first and think later, you will never again be trapped by the myth of readiness. You will have learned the truth that changes everything. Action is what makes you ready. Chapter 4. Kill the comfort loop. Comfort feels safe. It feels deserved. It feels harmless. But comfort, when repeated too often, becomes a trap that steals your drive in silence. You begin to live in circles, doing just enough to stay afloat, but never enough to move forward. You tell yourself that you will start when you feel better, but the more you rest, the less energy you have. The comfort that once helped you recover now keeps you from growing. This is the comfort loop, the invisible cycle that keeps your life predictable but stagnant. The comfort loop begins with a small escape. You feel tired, so you open your phone for a quick distraction. You promise yourself it will only be 5 minutes. Then an hour passes, and you feel guilty. The guilt drains your energy even more, so you reach again for comfort to feel better. The cycle repeats. The mind becomes addicted to short bursts of pleasure that require no effort. You get stuck in the loop, chasing ease and avoiding effort, while convincing yourself that tomorrow will be different. The truth is that comfort has no end. The more you feed it, the hungrier it becomes. The brain adapts quickly to what feels good. It starts craving the next small hit of relaxation, entertainment, or pleasure. It stops distinguishing between healthy rest and unhealthy avoidance. Over time, comfort becomes your default reaction to stress, boredom, and even opportunity. You no longer seek challenge because your system has learned that effort feels like danger. The result is a slow decay of discipline, creativity, and purpose. To break this loop, you must replace comfort with clarity. Comfort thrives in vagueness. When you do not know what matters most, everything feels optional. You end up choosing what feels easiest. The moment you define your priorities, comfort loses its control. You see distractions for what they are, detours from what truly matters. Write down what you want. Name it. Be specific. Then commit to one small action every time you feel the urge to drift. The mind can only follow one command at a time. Give it a clear one. Breaking the comfort loop does not mean removing all pleasure. It means choosing the kind of pleasure that strengthens you instead of weakens you. Real comfort comes after effort. It feels earned. It restores energy instead of stealing it. The false comfort of laziness, on the other hand, leaves you emptier than before. Every time you pick the false kind, remind yourself that you are trading your future for a moment of ease. The way out of the comfort loop is through controlled discomfort. Challenge yourself daily. Start small, but make it consistent. Walk when you want to sit. Read when you want to scroll. Work for 10 minutes when your mind says rest. Each small victory weakens the grip of the loop. You begin to feel alive again because progress, not comfort, is the real source of peace. Kill the comfort loop before it quietly kills your potential. Learn to crave the satisfaction that comes from effort. Let discomfort become the new normal, because once you do, comfort will no longer control you. You will control it, and that is where discipline begins. Chapter 5. Rewire your morning. The day does not begin when you open your eyes. It begins with the first decision you make. That decision shapes your chemistry, your focus, and your momentum for everything that follows. Most people do not realize that the first 10 minutes after waking determine the next 10 hours. The brain wakes up searching for direction. If you do not give it one, it returns to habit. And if your habit is comfort, your day begins with defeat before it even starts. Laziness thrives in chaos. It hides in the mornings that start without structure. You roll over, check your phone, scroll for a few minutes, and suddenly your mind is flooded with other people's lives, opinions, and demands. Before you have taken a single breath for yourself, you have already surrendered your focus to the world. You tell yourself you will get back on track later, but later never comes. The truth is that the morning decides who is in control, you or your distractions. Rewiring your morning begins with reclaiming silence. Do not rush into stimulation. Let your first moments belong to you, not to your phone, not to your work, not to anyone else. Sit, breathe, and notice the state of your body. You are teaching your mind to obey command, not impulse. This quiet discipline builds control. It reminds you that you decide how your day unfolds. Once silence is established, movement must follow. The body leads the mind. When you move, you wake the system that drives energy and focus. It does not need to be long or intense. Stretch, walk, breathe deeply. You are not just warming up muscles. You are signaling to the brain that the day has started and you are ready for it. The brain releases dopamine and norepinephrine when motion begins, chemicals that sharpen alertness and motivation. This is how you generate energy instead of waiting for it. The next part is clarity. Write down what you must complete today. Not a long list, just 3 things that truly matter. Choose actions that align with your goals, not distractions that fill time. When you decide what matters most early, the rest of the day becomes easier. Your focus has direction, and your energy knows where to go. This single act separates a productive day from an anxious one. Finally, build one ritual that anchors your mornings. It could be reading, journaling, or simple reflection. What matters is that it repeats. The brain loves rhythm. It learns through repetition. A consistent ritual removes uncertainty and builds stability. It becomes a signal that laziness does not control your start anymore. Rewiring your morning is not about perfection. Some days will be slow, others rushed, but the commitment remains the same. Begin with intention, not reaction. When you own your morning, you set a tone of power that follows you through every challenge. The morning is not just a time of day, it is a training ground for discipline. Treat it with respect, and it will give you back your focus, your energy, and your control. Chapter 6. Build motion. Before motivation, motivation is overrated. You keep waiting for it like a spark that will set your life on fire. But the truth is, it rarely appears on its own. Motivation is not the beginning of action, it is the result of it. The energy you crave only shows up once you start moving. That is why people who act first always seem more motivated than those who wait. They are not gifted with drive. They generate it. The brain is wired to reward movement. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, it releases dopamine, the chemical of progress. It is the same signal that pushes you to keep going, to stay focused, to finish what you started. The problem is that most people wait for this feeling before they act. They expect to feel inspired, confident, or prepared. But feelings are unreliable. They come and go like weather. If you want to build consistency, you cannot let emotion decide when you begin. Think of motion as ignition. When you push yourself to start, even with the smallest action, you create heat. That heat melts resistance. It changes the story your mind is telling. Instead of saying, "I do not want to," it starts saying, "I am already doing it." Once that shift happens, momentum takes over. The hardest part of any task is not the middle or the end. It is the first minute. The second you move, the weight begins to fade. To build motion before motivation, you must learn to act without negotiation. Do not ask yourself how you feel. Feelings are not facts. The mind will always search for comfort, and comfort will always delay you. Instead, give yourself a command and obey it. Stand up. Write one line. Do one push-up. Open the document. Start small, but start immediately. It does not matter how imperfect the first attempt is. It matters that you broke inertia. The beauty of this approach is that it rewires the way your brain connects action and reward. You begin to associate movement with energy, not exhaustion. The more you practice this, the faster your motivation returns. Over time, you stop waiting for inspiration. You become the source of it. Motion becomes your trigger. There will be days when you feel heavy, days when your thoughts are loud and your body resists. Those are the days that define who you become. If you can move when it is hardest, you can move any time. Discipline is not built in comfort. It is built in the moments when you move through resistance instead of listening to it. The world belongs to those who act before they feel ready. Every person who has achieved something meaningful learned this truth. The body must lead, and the mind will follow. So stop waiting for motivation to arrive. It is not coming. Move first. The spark you are waiting for will appear in motion, not in stillness. That is how you build unstoppable force. Chapter 7. Master the art of friction. Discipline is not just about effort, it is about structure. Most people think they fail because they lack willpower, but the truth is, they fail because their environment makes laziness easy and effort hard. The body and mind always take the path of least resistance. If comfort is closer than challenge, you will always choose comfort. The key to lasting change is not to fight harder, but to make the right choice easier. That is the art of friction. Friction is the invisible force that guides your behavior without you noticing. It is the reason you open your phone more often than you read a book. The phone is one tap away, while the book is across the room. It is the reason you eat what is in sight, not what is healthy. The brain obeys proximity. Whatever costs less energy wins. You cannot eliminate friction completely, but you can control where it lives. If you place friction in front of bad habits and remove it from good ones, your life begins to change effortlessly. Start by studying your environment. Look at your room, your desk, your digital space. Ask yourself what actions are being encouraged by what you see. If your workspace is cluttered, distraction has already won. If your phone is next to your bed, sleep will always lose to scrolling. The solution is not more self-control. It is smarter design. Move the objects that pull you away from your goals and bring the tools of discipline closer to you. The less energy it takes to begin, the more often you will. Friction also lives in your schedule. If you do not set clear times for what matters, everything else fills the space. Discipline thrives in clarity. When you decide exactly when and where you will act, resistance loses strength. But when you leave it to chance, laziness will always find an opening. Structure is not restriction. It is freedom from chaos. It allows your mind to rest because it no longer has to negotiate every decision. Even your thoughts carry friction. Overthinking adds weight to action. You tell yourself stories about why something will be hard, and those stories become walls. The way to break them is to act before they grow. Thinking should serve motion, not replace it. The more you hesitate, the higher the friction becomes. The faster you begin, the smaller it stays. Mastering the art of friction is about creating a world that pulls you toward progress. It is about removing the temptation that makes you weak and designing triggers that make you strong. Put your shoes by the door if you want to run. Keep your notebook open if you want to write. Prepare your space so that effort feels natural. Success is not about being superhuman. It is about shaping your surroundings to support the person you want to become. When you control friction, you control your habits. And when you control your habits, laziness no longer stands a chance. Chapter 8. The 2-minute rule of force. Procrastination is not a lack of desire. It is the fear of beginning. The moment you look at a task and imagine how much time or energy it will take, your brain retreats. It convinces you that you need more time, more clarity, or more motivation. This hesitation can stretch into hours, days, or even weeks. The way to destroy it is with speed, not the kind of frantic speed that burns you out, but the kind that gets you started before your mind has time to resist. This is where the 2-minute rule of force begins. The rule is simple. If something takes less than 2 minutes to start, do it immediately. The goal is not perfection or completion. It is movement. The mind needs proof that action is possible. Once it feels momentum, resistance weakens. The 2-minute rule breaks the wall between thinking and doing. It makes the act of starting automatic. When you remove the weight of decision, you remove the grip of laziness. Think about how often you lose an entire day to hesitation. You stare at the task, you build anxiety around it, and you start to believe it is harder than it really is. But once you begin, you realize it takes far less effort than your mind predicted. The 2-minute rule turns this truth into a habit. You stop waiting for readiness and train yourself to move instantly. The faster you start, the shorter your resistance lives. The secret is that 2 minutes often lead to more. When you start writing for 2 minutes, you usually write for 10. When you start cleaning for 2 minutes, the whole room gets organized. Motion feeds itself. The mind likes completion. Once you begin, it wants to finish. That is the hidden power of this rule. It tricks your brain into progress before it has time to escape into excuses. Start using this rule for everything that feels heavy. Tell yourself, I will just start for 2 minutes. Open the file, begin the workout, make the call, send the message. The small act of starting creates psychological leverage. You turn thought into proof, and proof kills doubt faster than motivation ever could. The 2-minute rule works because it respects biology. The brain craves immediate reward. When you begin a task, you reward yourself with progress instead of guilt. Over time, this rewires your motivation system. You begin to crave movement because it feels better than avoidance. Laziness no longer feels comfortable. Stillness begins to feel wrong. Master this rule, and you master initiation. You stop needing permission to begin. Every big achievement starts with a small motion, and every small motion starts with a single decision made within 2 minutes. Do not think, do not hesitate, just start. Because once you move, momentum takes care of the rest. The 2-minute rule is not just a tactic, it is a declaration that laziness no longer leads your life. You do. Chapter 9. Discipline over emotion. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who always feel driven. They are the ones who act even when they feel nothing at all. Discipline begins where emotion ends. It is the ability to move forward when your mood says stop. Most people never learn this because they live as prisoners of their feelings. When they feel good, they work hard. When they feel tired, they rest. When they feel bored, they give up. But emotion is unstable. It shifts with weather, with sleep, with circumstance. If you let it lead you, you will live in circles, always waiting for the right feeling to appear before you take action. Discipline is the opposite. It does not care how you feel. It only cares what must be done. It is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastering it. You can acknowledge your feelings without obeying them. You can feel tired and still move. You can feel afraid and still act. The mistake is thinking that emotion and discipline cannot exist together. They can. You simply decide which one has authority. Every time you let emotion win, you train weakness. Every time you act through resistance, you train strength. This is how character is built, not in the easy days, but in the hard ones when you move despite doubt. The body learns from repetition. When you take action while feeling low, the mind begins to understand that emotion is not a command. It is only information. You can notice it without surrendering to it. That is power. Discipline is not natural. It is practiced. It grows from the small choices you make every day. Wake up on time even when you want to stay in bed. Finish the task even when no one is watching. Keep your promises to yourself even when your mind tells you to quit. Every small act of consistency builds self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of discipline. The more you keep your word, the stronger you feel. The stronger you feel, the less emotion controls you. This does not mean you should ignore your feelings completely. Emotions have value. They show you where your energy is going. But you must learn to separate what is useful from what is destructive. Use emotion as fuel, not as a steering wheel. Anger can drive you to improve. Fear can sharpen focus. Sadness can deepen empathy. But none of these should decide whether you move or not. Movement is non-negotiable. To live with discipline over emotion is to live with calm authority over yourself. You stop reacting to every internal wave. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You act because action is who you are. When you learn to move even when you feel nothing, you become unstoppable. The person who only works when they feel like it will always be owned by circumstance. The person who works no matter how they feel will own their life. Discipline is not emotionless. It is emotional control in action, and once you master it, nothing can pull you off course. Chapter 10. The Identity Shift. True change begins when you stop trying to act differently and start seeing yourself differently. Most people try to fix their habits without fixing the identity behind them. They force discipline for a few days, they push through willpower for a few weeks, but sooner or later, the old version of themselves pulls them back. You cannot outperform the identity you believe in. The way you see yourself decides what you tolerate, what you chase, and what you repeat. Laziness is not just a behavior, it is an identity built through repetition. When you avoid hard things, even for small reasons, you teach your mind who you are. Every skipped task becomes proof that you are the kind of person who quits early. Over time, those tiny moments build a self-image. You begin to describe yourself with quiet resignation. You say things like, "I'm just not a morning person," or "I'm not disciplined like others." Those phrases sound innocent, but they are instructions to your subconscious. They tell your brain what to believe. To overcome laziness for good, you must build a new identity. Not one built on what you wish you were, but on what you prove through action. Every small victory becomes evidence of change. Every promise you keep becomes a vote for your future self. The goal is not to fake confidence. It is to show yourself enough proof that you begin to trust your own words again. The shift begins with a question: who do you want to be when no one is watching? The answer must be simple, strong, and repeatable. You might say, "I am the kind of person who finishes what I start." Then act like it, even in small ways. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be consistent enough to make the new identity feel real. The brain believes what it sees, repeated. When you change your identity, your behavior follows naturally. You no longer have to drag yourself toward your goals. You act in alignment with who you already think you are. This is why disciplined people seem effortless. They are not constantly fighting laziness. They simply no longer identify with it. The behavior that once felt impossible now feels natural because it matches the story they tell themselves. Your transformation does not depend on motivation. It depends on proof. Every time you choose discipline, you vote for your new identity. Every time you choose comfort, you vote for the old one. The identity that wins is the one you reinforce most often. You are not lazy. You are someone who has practiced laziness. But practice can change. Build the kind of identity that commands respect from yourself. See yourself as someone who moves with purpose, who follows through, who does not negotiate with weakness. The moment you believe that deeply, action becomes second nature. You no longer try to change, you simply live as the person you decided to become. That is the real victory over laziness, the moment your habits no longer require effort because they are part of who you are. Chapter 11. Eliminate energy leaks. You can have the strongest will in the world, but if your energy leaks through distractions, negativity, and clutter, you will still feel empty before the day even begins. Laziness often hides behind exhaustion. You tell yourself you are tired, but you are not tired from effort. You are tired from noise, from indecision, from giving your attention to everything that does not matter. Energy leaks are invisible drains that weaken your focus until even simple tasks feel heavy. To overcome laziness, you must first learn how to protect your energy. Every decision you make, every thought you entertain, and every person you engage with uses energy. The problem is that most people spend it carelessly. They give their best hours to distraction and wonder why there's nothing left for discipline. You cannot operate at a high level if your mind is constantly interrupted. Every notification, every small argument, every open tab steals a piece of your strength. The mind was not designed for endless stimulation. It needs stillness to rebuild its power. Start by identifying the leaks in your day. Notice the habits that drain you, the endless scrolling, the gossip, the meaningless multitasking, the things you say yes to out of guilt or fear. These are not harmless. Each one subtracts a piece of your focus. Protecting your energy begins with awareness. You must become ruthless about what deserves your attention. Not everything does. People can also be leaks. Some conversations leave you lighter, others leave you heavy. Notice how you feel after you interact with someone. Do you feel calm or tense, focused or drained? You cannot grow in an environment that constantly pulls you backward. You do not need to cut everyone out of your life, but you must learn to guard your mental boundaries. Choose people who challenge you to rise, not those who comfort your excuses. Your physical space matters too. Chaos outside creates chaos inside. Cluttered rooms, messy desks, and unorganized schedules send constant signals of disorder to your brain. Clean environments create calm minds. Every time you tidy your space, you reduce mental friction. You make it easier to focus, to think, and to act. Eliminating energy leaks is not about perfection. It is about precision. You must learn to invest your energy where it multiplies. Rest is important, but rest is not the same as escape. Real rest recharges you. False rest numbs you. Pay attention to the difference. One gives you life, the other steals it. When you stop leaking energy, laziness begins to fade on its own. You will feel lighter, sharper, and more capable. You will no longer confuse burnout with apathy. You will understand that your energy is your most valuable resource, and protecting it is an act of discipline. The more you guard it, the more power you have to direct it toward what matters. Eliminate the leaks, and what remains will be strength, focus, and clarity. That is the foundation of unstoppable motion. Chapter 12. Train in discomfort daily. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the purest teacher you will ever have. Most people spend their lives avoiding it, running from challenge as if it were danger. But discomfort is not punishment. It is proof that you are growing. The body grows through tension. The mind grows through struggle. Every time you avoid discomfort, you choose short-term relief over long-term strength. Every time you face it, you build power that cannot be taken away. Laziness often disguises itself as comfort-seeking. You tell yourself that you deserve rest, that you will start when you feel more ready, that there is no point pushing so hard. But what you are really doing is protecting yourself from the feeling of discomfort. You are training your brain to fear effort. The only way to reverse that is through deliberate exposure. You must train in discomfort daily until it becomes normal. Start small. Do something every day that challenges you. It does not have to be extreme. Take a cold shower, wake up earlier, hold silence when you want distraction, finish the last set when your body wants to quit. The point is not pain, it is awareness. You are teaching your mind to separate discomfort from danger. You are proving to yourself that effort will not break you. Each time you endure it, you weaken laziness and strengthen control. Discomfort builds mental calluses the same way lifting builds muscle. The first few times hurt the most. You will want to stop. But if you stay with it, your threshold expands. What once felt impossible becomes routine. This is how champions, leaders, and creators rise. They do not seek comfort. They seek resistance because they understand that resistance creates growth. The key is to make discomfort deliberate, not random. Chaos does not build character, discipline does. Choose your challenges, plan them, know why you are doing them. Each act should serve your identity, not your ego. When you choose your struggle, it no longer controls you. You move from reacting to life to commanding it. The benefits go beyond strength. Discomfort brings clarity. When you strip away ease, you discover what truly matters. You find the edges of your patience, the truth of your limits, and the depth of your will. You stop being afraid of effort because you have met it and survived. That is freedom. Train in discomfort daily and you will become calm under pressure. When others panic, you will stay centered. When others quit, you will keep going. Comfort will no longer seduce you because you will know what it costs. Growth requires friction. Confidence requires proof. Peace requires struggle first. The more you expose yourself to discomfort, the less power it has over you. And one day, without noticing, you will realize that you have become the kind of person who does not wait for easy. You will have become someone who creates strength every single day. Chapter 13. The Reward Rewire. Every habit you repeat is linked to a reward. The brain does not care whether the habit helps you or hurts you. It only remembers the feeling that follows it. If a behavior brings quick pleasure or relief, the brain marks it as worth repeating. This is how laziness strengthens over time. Each moment of comfort delivers a small burst of satisfaction that teaches the mind to chase ease instead of effort. To overcome laziness, you must rewire what your brain calls rewarding. Your nervous system is built to seek pleasure and avoid pain. This instinct was useful when survival meant finding food and safety, but in the modern world, the same instinct can destroy focus and discipline. Your brain releases dopamine, not when you finish a task, but when you expect a reward. That is why even thinking about scrolling your phone or eating something sweet gives you a rush of anticipation. The problem is that these rewards are empty. They give pleasure without progress, and the more you feed them, the harder it becomes to find joy in real work. Rewiring your reward system begins with awareness. Start noticing what gives you small hits of comfort throughout the day. Ask yourself whether that pleasure leads to growth or stagnation. The key is not to remove reward, but to replace it. You must teach your brain to crave effort by connecting satisfaction to action instead of escape. The first few days will feel uncomfortable. The body will want quick comfort, but if you stay consistent, the chemistry shifts. What once felt hard will start to feel good because the brain begins to associate challenge with accomplishment. You can use this principle in every area of your life. When you work out, do not wait for the endorphin rush. Focus on the pride of following through. When you study, do not focus on the hours ahead. Focus on the growing sharpness of your mind. When you complete a task, give yourself a small reward that reinforces the connection between effort and pleasure. It could be rest, reflection, or simple acknowledgement. Each repetition strengthens the new loop. This is how high performers build momentum. They are not superhuman. They simply enjoy progress more than comfort. They have trained their brains to see struggle as satisfying. Over time, the pleasure that once came from distraction begins to feel hollow. Laziness loses its appeal because it no longer gives a reward worth chasing. The reward rewire is not about discipline alone. It is about changing the emotional meaning of effort. When hard work becomes a source of fulfillment instead of frustration, you stop fighting yourself. You move naturally toward what challenges you because it feels right. Your brain becomes your ally instead of your obstacle. Once you reach that point, motivation is no longer something you search for. It becomes automatic. You will have taught your mind that real pleasure lives inside progress, not avoidance. And that lesson will last a lifetime. Chapter 14. Control your inner voice. The most powerful conversations you will ever have are the ones no one else hears. Your inner voice is the constant narrator of your life, shaping your confidence, your effort, and your belief in what is possible. Every action begins with a thought, and every thought is filtered through this voice. If it is filled with doubt, you hesitate. If it is filled with strength, you move. The voice you listen to most becomes the one that controls you. Laziness often starts in the mind long before it shows up in behavior. You tell yourself, "I'm too tired," or "It doesn't matter if I skip today." Those words sound harmless, but they are commands. The brain obeys language. When you repeat excuses, you're not just describing your state, you are programming it. You train your body to believe your words. That is why mastering your inner voice is not motivation, it is mental discipline. Begin by noticing the way you talk to yourself. When you fail, do you attack yourself or do you learn from it? When you feel resistance, do you listen or do you lead? Most people speak to themselves in a way they would never speak to someone they love. They use words that weaken instead of words that build. But your mind records every sentence. It becomes the script of your behavior. To control your inner voice, you must replace reaction with intention. You do not have to believe every thought you think. You can interrupt it. When you hear that voice of doubt, pause and replace it with direction. Say, "I can do this," even when you do not fully believe it yet. Say, "Start now," even when you want to wait. Say, "Keep going," when everything feels heavy. These small phrases rewire your brain's response to challenge. They shift your focus from feeling to action. The mind follows the path of repetition. The more often you feed it powerful language, the more natural strength becomes. Over time, your inner voice transforms from an enemy into a coach. It stops asking if you can and starts reminding you that you already are. This is not delusion, it is leadership. You are teaching your thoughts to serve your goals instead of sabotage them. When the voice of laziness tries to whisper, drown it out with clarity. Tell yourself what needs to be done, not how you feel about it. The moment you give the mind a clear command, emotion loses its power. You become the one who speaks, not the one who listens. Mastering your inner voice is the foundation of self-control. It is how you stay calm when things go wrong and focused when distraction calls. The words you speak internally become the reality you live externally. Choose them carefully. Speak to yourself with conviction, with purpose, and with respect. Because the truth is simple. You will never rise above the conversation you are having in your own head. Chapter 15. Turn procrastination into power. Procrastination is not laziness. It is fear in disguise. It is the hesitation that lives between intention and action. When you procrastinate, you are not avoiding work. You are avoiding discomfort. You are avoiding the possibility of failure, judgment, or imperfection. The mind creates a false sense of safety by delaying what it fears. But that safety is an illusion. Every delay steals energy, confidence, and time. The cure is not to hate procrastination, but to understand it and turn it into fuel. When you procrastinate, your brain is trying to protect you. It believes that if you wait, you can escape pain. But what it does not see is that the longer you wait, the heavier the task becomes. Avoidance amplifies anxiety. The more you delay, the stronger the resistance grows. The only way to shrink that resistance is through action. You must teach your mind that moving forward is less painful than staying stuck. The first step is awareness. Do not lie to yourself about why you are procrastinating. It is not because you are tired or distracted. It is because you are uncertain. You fear that your effort will not be enough. You fear that what you create will not match your vision. But perfection is a trap. Nothing improves through thought alone. Action is the sculptor that shapes clarity. Once you start, you discover that most of your fears were exaggerated illusions built by inactivity. To turn procrastination into power, use it as a signal. The tasks you delay most often are the ones that matter most. They carry the potential to change your life, which is why your mind fears them. Instead of avoiding them, face them first. Start with one small move. Open the document, send the message, begin the workout. The faster you act, the weaker the resistance becomes. The mind learns that fear does not control you anymore. Momentum is the antidote to procrastination. When you move even slightly, the brain releases dopamine, which reinforces progress. That single act of starting builds pride and energy. Soon, the same task that felt impossible begins to flow naturally. The secret is not to wait for the feeling to change, but to act until it does. Reframing procrastination transforms it into purpose. When you feel resistance, see it as a sign that growth is near. The greater the hesitation, the greater the opportunity on the other side. Do not fight the feeling. Use it. Let it guide you toward what matters most. Every time you act despite hesitation, you train courage. Every time you complete something you once avoided, you prove to yourself that fear is only a suggestion, not a rule. Over time, procrastination becomes a compass that points you toward progress. You stop seeing it as weakness and start seeing it as direction. That is the shift that changes everything. The moment you use resistance as a guide, procrastination no longer holds you back. It becomes the signal that tells you exactly where to go next. Chapter 16. The System of Non-Negotiables. Discipline fails when it depends on mood. If you only act when you feel like it, you will never build consistency. The people who achieve lasting success do not rely on emotion to guide them. They live by systems. Within those systems are the non-negotiables, the actions they perform no matter what. These are not suggestions or goals. They are standards. They represent who you are at your core, the habits that define your identity and anchor your progress. Non-negotiables give structure to your life. They remove the weight of daily decision-making. When you decide something is non-negotiable, you remove debate. There is no question of whether you will do it. You simply do. This is where real power begins, when you no longer have to negotiate with yourself about what must be done. The more you remove negotiation, the stronger you become. To build your system, start small. Choose 3 actions that align with the person you want to be. They can be as simple as waking up at the same time every day, training your body, or finishing what you start. What matters is that you commit fully. The mind finds peace in certainty. When you know your rules, you stop wasting energy deciding whether to follow them. Each repetition strengthens identity. Each completed action reinforces belief. Your system should be clear but flexible. The point is not to live like a machine. The point is to live with integrity. When life gets chaotic, your non-negotiables become your compass. They remind you who you are, even when everything else feels unstable. The stronger your standards, the less external chaos can shake you. Discipline becomes automatic because your actions no longer rely on motivation. Non-negotiables also protect your focus. When you know your priorities, distractions lose power. You stop chasing everything that looks urgent and start honoring what is important. You begin to respect your time, your effort, and your boundaries. People may not understand your commitment, but that is because they live by preference, not by principle. You will live differently. You will live with order, purpose, and direction. The system of non-negotiables does not have to be complex. In fact, simplicity makes it stronger. Complexity invites excuses. Clarity builds strength. If you miss a day, you do not collapse. You return immediately. That return is part of the system too. You are not perfect. You are consistent. That is what changes you. When you live by standards instead of feelings, you become unshakable. The world can shift. Your emotions can fluctuate, but your actions remain steady. That steadiness builds momentum, and momentum builds mastery. The person who honors their non-negotiables commands their life. There is no more waiting, no more excuses, no more hesitation. There is only the next action done because it must be. That is the quiet strength of discipline. That is how you become unstoppable. Chapter 17. Win the evenings. What you do before you sleep is just as important as what you do when you wake up. Most people focus on their mornings, but ignore their nights. They spend their last hours in distraction, giving their attention to screens and noise until the mind becomes restless. Then they wonder why they wake up tired and unfocused. Your evenings are the foundation of your next day. If you learn to master them, you end every day with intention instead of regret. The evening is when your discipline is tested most. Your willpower fades as the day goes on, and comfort becomes more tempting. This is when laziness whispers, "You deserve to relax." Rest is important, but the way you rest determines whether you recover or regress. True rest restores energy. False rest drains it. The difference lies in awareness. Watching meaningless videos until midnight feels easy, but it robs your focus. Reading, stretching, reflecting, or preparing for tomorrow gives you peace instead of emptiness. Winning the evening begins with one question. How do I want to feel when I wake up? Every decision you make at night answers that question. If you want to feel calm, stop filling your mind with chaos. If you want to feel ready, stop scrolling through distractions. End your day in the same spirit you want to start the next one. The best performers treat evenings like a ritual. They close the loop of the day with order and reflection. They write down what they accomplished and what still needs attention. This releases mental tension and creates clarity. The brain can only rest when it knows it will not forget what matters. That simple act of writing clears the noise that often keeps people awake. Then comes preparation. Lay out what you need for tomorrow. Review your goals, your tasks, your schedule. This small act removes morning friction and gives your mind a sense of readiness. When you wake up, you move straight into purpose instead of confusion. You have already decided your direction. That clarity builds momentum before the day begins. Your body also needs a signal that it is time to rest. Light, noise, and chaos confuse the nervous system. Dim the lights, slow your breathing, step away from screens, and practice silence. This routine tells your mind that the day is ending and recovery is about to begin. The calmer your nights, the sharper your mornings. Winning the evening does not mean perfection. It means creating a rhythm that supports discipline. It is a time to reset, to plan, to rest with purpose. When you use your nights wisely, you eliminate the need to start over every morning. Each day becomes a continuation of progress, not a restart after failure. The day belongs to those who master their evenings. How you end today decides how you will begin tomorrow. Finish with order, peace, and clarity, and life will begin to move in rhythm with your goals. That is how you win, not just the morning, but every day that follows. Chapter 18. Build an unbreakable streak. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. Once you start moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. Once you stop, the resistance to restart grows heavier each day. This is why building a streak is so important. A streak transforms effort into identity. It shifts your focus from single victories to a chain of consistent wins that feed your confidence. When you protect your streak, you protect your progress. The mind loves patterns. It finds comfort in repetition. When you repeat an action daily, your brain begins to automate it. It no longer questions whether you will do it. It simply expects it. The power of a streak is not in the length of time, but in the consistency of repetition. Each day becomes a vote for your future self. The more days you collect, the more powerful your belief in yourself becomes. The hardest part of any streak is the beginning. At first, you must think about every decision. You must remind yourself to stay on track. But after enough repetition, effort turns into instinct. The brain begins to link the habit to your identity. You stop saying, "I need to work out." You start saying, "I am someone who trains." That shift changes everything. To build an unbreakable streak, you must make it visible. Track your days, write them down, mark them on a calendar. Each mark is proof of progress, a physical reminder that you are becoming stronger. When you see your streak, your motivation increases. You begin to fear breaking it more than you fear the effort it takes to continue. This fear works in your favor. It turns discipline into momentum. The secret is to focus on the process, not perfection. Missing one day does not destroy a streak, quitting does. If you break your rhythm, restart immediately. The faster you return, the less damage is done. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to be relentless. Every time you begin again, you prove that failure cannot stop you. Your streak is also your shield. Life will always test your consistency. There will be distractions, setbacks, and days when you feel off balance. But if you hold on to your streak, it will carry you through. It reminds you of all the times you pushed through before. It becomes proof that you are stronger than your emotions, stronger than your excuses, stronger than your past. Building an unbreakable streak is how discipline becomes permanent. It is how you move from wishing to becoming. Each day adds weight to your confidence, and every mark on your record becomes evidence of who you are. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to keep going. When you live with that mindset, you stop counting days and start creating momentum that cannot be broken. That is the real reward of consistency. It is not the streak itself, but the strength it builds within you. Chapter 19. When you fall behind. No matter how disciplined you become, there will be days when you fall behind. You will miss a workout, break a streak, sleep through an alarm, or lose focus. It happens to everyone. What separates the strong from the weak is not that they never fall. It is how fast they rise. Falling behind is not failure. Staying behind is. The goal is not perfection. The goal is recovery. Most people make the mistake of turning one small slip into a story about who they are. They say, "I always fail," or "I knew I couldn't keep this up." That is how a single missed action becomes a permanent setback. The truth is that falling behind is part of progress. Every system, every habit, every journey includes friction. You are not meant to live flawlessly. You are meant to learn to return. The key is to remove emotion from the moment. When you miss a day, do not spiral into guilt. Guilt wastes energy that could be used to rebuild. Instead, treat your setback like data. Ask yourself what went wrong. Was it poor planning? Was it fatigue? Was it distraction? Once you understand the cause, you can prevent it from happening again. The mature mind does not panic. It analyzes, adjusts, and continues. Momentum can be rebuilt faster than you think. The first step after falling behind is immediate action, no matter how small. Do not wait to feel ready. Start again before your mind can create excuses. The longer you wait, the heavier the weight of inaction becomes. The first day back may feel awkward. You may feel slower or less capable. But once you begin, confidence returns quickly. Action rebuilds belief. The second step is to forgive yourself. Discipline without compassion becomes punishment. You must understand that growth is not a straight line. There will be days when you slip. What matters is that you never lose faith in your ability to return. When you forgive yourself, you remove the emotional block that keeps you trapped in regret. You clear space for movement again. The third step is to learn from the fall. Each setback carries a message. Maybe you were overworking. Maybe your system had too much pressure and not enough rest. Maybe you lost focus on your reason why. Falling behind gives you a chance to correct the structure. It strengthens awareness. It makes you smarter. Resilience is built through recovery, not perfection. The ability to return after losing momentum is one of the rarest skills in life. Anyone can start when things are easy. Few can restart after they stumble. Every time you return, you build the muscle of resilience. You become harder to break, harder to discourage, and harder to stop. Falling behind does not erase your progress. It is only a pause. You are still on the path. You only need to take one small step to return to it. The moment you act again, the story changes. You are no longer the person who quit. You are the person who kept going. That is how strength is born. Chapter 20. The Life Without Laziness. A life without laziness is not a life without rest. It is a life where rest serves purpose instead of avoidance. It is a life where motion feels natural, where discipline is no longer a struggle, but a reflection of who you are. Reaching this point does not happen overnight. It is built through repetition, self-respect, and the decision to rise every time you fall. The reward for all your effort is not perfection. It is freedom, the freedom to act without hesitation, to move with clarity, and to live without regret. When you remove laziness, you begin to see how much strength has always lived inside you. The fog lifts, the excuses fade. You realize that the energy you once wasted on guilt and delay can now fuel creation. You stop being at war with yourself. Your mind and your body begin to move in the same direction. That alignment is what peace truly feels like. A life without laziness is a life of deliberate rhythm. You wake up knowing what matters. You work with focus. You rest with intention. Every part of your day has meaning. You no longer chase distraction because you are fulfilled by progress. You no longer need constant motivation because action itself gives you energy. The satisfaction of doing what you said you would do becomes the strongest reward of all. This life is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters most. Productivity without purpose is another form of noise. True discipline simplifies your world. It removes what does not serve you and makes space for what does. You start valuing stillness not as an escape, but as recovery. You start valuing effort not as struggle, but as creation. Everything you do becomes a statement of who you have become. The person who once delayed now decides. The person who once feared now acts. The person who once waited now leads. Laziness loses power because you have proven that movement is your nature. You are no longer chasing change, you are living it. Every small choice compounds into strength. Every action builds self-trust, and every day becomes a reflection of the identity you have earned. A life without laziness is not one free of challenge. It is one that meets challenge with calm confidence. You will still face moments of doubt, fatigue, and resistance, but they will not control you anymore. You will move through them with clarity, knowing that motion is always the cure. You will live by standards that protect your peace, habits that guard your focus, and purpose that fuels your spirit. This is the transformation you have been working toward. Not a new life, but a new relationship with yourself. You have learned that discipline is not punishment. It is love in its highest form, the act of caring for your potential. A life without laziness is a life where you finally trust yourself to follow through. And when you trust yourself, everything else begins to fall into place.